Okay, so I'll select these controls and up here type lumbar, and it's going to rename those for me. And I'll select these two controls, and up here I'll type thoracic. That's going to rename those two for me. And for all of these, I'm only going to want their rotation. So I'm going to hide the scales and the translate channels. Lock and hide selected. There we go. And I want to name these all something better than group. So I actually have a little script that'll do that for me. I'm going to select all those groups and run group renamer, and it just goes in and adds the word group and the child name to make things easier for me. Okay, so now what I want to do is just parent these guys up so their hierarchy matches what my spine is like here. So what I'm going to do is just grab the top control here, thoracic 2, and go up to its group, and then just group it to the curve right below. So if I rotate that curve, that whole guy's going to follow. And I'm just going to keep doing that down the joint chain. So thoracic 1 gets group 2 lumbar 3 control, and the group for the lumbar 3 gets parented underneath the lumbar 2 control, and the lumbar 2 group gets parented underneath the lumbar 1 control. So now if I go ahead and rotate these as well as the joints, you'll see that they have matching rotations. So just as if I was to rotate all these joints and all these curves, I should have matching rotations going on in there. And just to make these controls control those joints, I'm just going to use orient constraints. So I'll select the curve, select the joint, constrain, orient, and you shouldn't see any flipping or changing, and these should all be 0 over here on the right. Just hit G, which will redo that command to make this faster for me, and create a orient constraint on each of these joints. So now all I have to do is rotate these control curves, and it's going to do exactly what I want for me. And I have a very simple upper half of my FK spine. Okay, now what I do is bring back that hip joint, and I'm going to create some controls for that. Now for the hip joint, I'm actually just going to parent it under a control, so the orientation isn't quite as important. So I'm going to create a circle, snap to that hip joint. I'm just going to change the look of the curve a little bit by scaling in some of these. I'm going to freeze its transformations and delete its history, and then just parent it right underneath that control group. And that control, I'm going to name it hip control. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is create another curve, snap it to the same exact spot, delete its history, freeze its transformations, and this is going to call spine control. And under that, I'm going to parent the hip control, the group lumbar, and the spine itself, all underneath that spine control. And that's going to be like the overall upper group for this entire spine of the body. So if you picture the whole body here, I'd be able to move the whole body around using that control. So for the hip control, I only want rotates. I'm going to go ahead and hide, translate, and scale. Lock and hide those. And for this hip spine control, I just want to get rid of the scale controls. So I'm going to lock and hide those. So what I can do is go in here and move the hip independently. I can move the spine independently, and I can move the whole group together. Okay, and to see what that looks like a little bit better, I'm going to bring back the legs that I created earlier. And I created a second leg. There we go. And what I'm going to do is just take their leg groups and parent them actually underneath this hip joint right here. And you notice what happens when I parent that it draws joints to each of those joints there. This isn't all that bad. It's just another way to select your joint. It's all for visible. If you don't like seeing that, you want a little bit cleaner scene. What a lot of people have been doing lately is they'll group these two groups together and name them something, you know, like legs is fine, or group legs is probably better. And what you'll notice is in between the joint I have two transform nodes, a DAG and a DAG. And that's enough to make it so that when I parent this underneath that joint, I don't get those joints drawn. And really it's just a visibility thing. It doesn't really make a big difference in the world. Some people don't like to see those extra joints. It's a little bit cluttersome. It's not a bad idea. Okay, so now what I would see is if I grab this other spine control here, if I move that, you see that my legs respond because of that IK on there. And I can move the whole body around. Something like that. But also, I can go in here and just move my hips a little bit and leave my upper body. So when you're doing like a walk cycle and you want to just contrapposto those hips, you'll be able to do that by having that separate control there. And then anything I do on the upper part of the spine really isn't going to affect the lower part of my body at all. Ideally, you don't want to have it so that when you move your upper part of your body, your legs or your hips are doing anything like that.